I'll say this as we go through all of this. This is going to be the weirdest week one in probably recent memory, sure my lifetime. We have no idea what's going to happen. We have a general idea, but we have no clue because we haven't seen anything yet. I mean, what's going to happen,
Seahawks Falcons, any thoughts here?
I'm very interested to see how Matt Ryan and Hayden Hurst connected in their limited time together in practice. I'm also interested to see how Russell Wilson could potentially favor one of the 7 tight ends they have on the Seattle roster at the moment. And I'm also interested to see what the breakdown is between Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde in the backfield. Those are the things that I'm interested in.
Yeah, I guess there's a little intrigue in terms of how well will Todd Gurley mesh early on, but I'm gonna play Todd Gurley. He's gonna start for me. Yeah, he's gonna start. It's just a curiosity, but for sure Todd Gurley's in your starting lineup.
All righty, moving on over to the Jets and the Bills. What intrigues you in this matchup?
How does Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and John Brown mesh? On top of what is the true breakdown between Devin Singletary and Zach Moss? There's a lot of intrigue, honestly, with this Buffalo team. Just to kind of understand what their thought process is here to start the season. And even with the Jets, does a healthy offseason of Chris Herndon and a little bit of rapport with Sam Darnold spell fantasy success for people who waited on the tight end position? Like, do they use Brashard Perryman? This is the great thing about week one. There's tons of answers. Most of these Jets guys you drafted later, right? Maybe you took Lev Bell in the top 5 rounds. Everybody else you got after the 5th round. So you're just kind of waiting to see how that shook out.
I will play Stephon Diggs with caution and not have high expectations for him. Flex spot probably for Stephon Diggs this first week, just because new offense, new team. We'll see what
Bears, Lions, what you got here?
Which quarterback?
It's going to be Trubisky. They said Trubisky's going to start.
That should have been Nick Foles' job. What's the David Montgomery fallout? Like, how injured is his groin? They haven't brought anybody else in. So that does say that they're not, to me at least, it says that they're not too worried about it. Does a receiver besides Allen Robinson step up? And then for the Lions, can Matt Stafford pick up where he left off last year before he got injured? And that's really the question. If Matt Stafford picks right up with where he left off last year, getting Stafford late as far as the quarterback run goes will lead to fantasy success in 2020.
I'm also, play carry on. If you got DeAndre Swift, probably throw him in there too. Peterson, I'm not so sure week one. I'm not so sure on Peterson week one, new team. That's a short week.
I'm actually benching all Detroit running backs this week just because it's a nebulous type of thing. I want to see how it shakes out and how it breaks down. I am not touching that Detroit backfield week one unless I've got nothing else that I could potentially go with. That's the only way I'm starting anybody there.
I agree with that.
Moving over to the Packers and the Vikings. What do we got here, guys?
Is the Vikings defense as improved as they say it is? And is Aaron Rodgers on a mission to absolutely stick it to the league after he got shafted on draft night?
So here's something fun. The Vikings secondary is young, and as of right now, they have 2 safeties on the roster. So probably could be gangbusters. And keep in mind, there's going to be no fans in attendance at Minnesota, so you neutralize basically anything that a crowd would take. Not that it really matters to Aaron Rodgers, but that is done away. So I think it kind of favors the Packers offense a little bit more.
Dolphins, Patriots, what you got there?
What's Cam Newton look like? I mean, to me, that's really the only question of this game, right? Like, Tua's not playing yet. Fitzpatrick starting the season. What's Cam Newton look like? Is there a receiver that he favors? Like, there's a bunch of questions around this. I don't know that I'm necessarily starting anybody willingly. is the Patriots defense still good? Like, are you going to fade Jordan Howard in week 1? Unless you need a flex spot. Jordan Howard, you could play in the flex and it'll give you at least a floor. Does Devontae Parker continue his hot streak? Does Preston Williams, outpace him for the number 1 receiver? There are lots and lots of questions here. So hoping week 1 gives us at least a few answers so that way we can form our strategies here going forward.
Another interesting note there is Gesicki is not listed as the starting tight end either.
I think if you are forced into playing a Patriots running back, Sony Michel is the best option at this point.
I would argue James White.
Which name has Bill pulled out of the hat to go into week 1? That's a tough one to go with.
Eagles, Washington, what do you got here?
How much has Dwayne Haskins improved from the end of a rookie season that he was no bueno to his sophomore year? Ron Rivera has said positive things about him throughout camp, and we'll see what he's learned here. But that's the biggest thing I'm looking for in this game is, has Dwayne Haskins improved?
Also, is he looking over his shoulder? Because Alex Smith made that 53-man roster. So is Dwayne Haskins going to play scared? I think that's something that needs to be looked at. If you can see how that game plays out, that's how I would look too, is to see if Dwayne Haskins is going to play scared.
All right, Raiders, Panthers, what you got here?
How do these new young receivers for the Las Vegas Raiders look? What kind of rapport do they have, and which one's going to emerge as the go-to? Is it Ruggs, or is it going to be Hunter Renfrow? Do we see Darren Waller continue to do Darren Waller, the things he did last year, or is it just the Josh Jacobs show?
Colts and Jags.
I'm interested to see which receiver Phillip Rivers favors.
And the Jags, oh boy, who knows?
I'm actually interested to see how James Robinson, Chris Thompson, how that shakes out there. I'm interested to see how Minshew looks. I've got, we've picked Dede as a sleeper in several different places out there. We've been high on Chark. So there's a lot of questions that I want answered there, and we'll get a glimpse of what that starts to look like. Browns and Ravens.
Can Lamar repeat as NFL MVP?
And how much will he run the football? How much will there be designed runs for him? I think that's going to be intriguing as well. Will there be less designed runs for Lamar? I mean, he's still going to be able to get what he gets if a play breaks down, but will the design runs be there, which will inevitably help or hinder his rushing yards? And on the other side of that, the Browns' new offense, all those things. I mean, it's Baker's 19th OC that he's had since high school. Like, it's gonna be there will be some growing pains, I think, but I think that they'll be able to overcome. You just got to make sure you pick the right guy when it comes to Cleveland's offense. Hopefully, you do.
Chargers, Bengals.
Let's see what Joe Burrow has in the NFL.
See what Tyrod's going to do, if he's going to have more deep shots than what he's proven to take. I think the bigger spotlight, and maybe it's a good thing for Tyrod, is the bigger spotlight's going to be on Joe Burrow. And fair or not, you're the number 1 overall pick. You're gonna have some attention brought to you. So I know the Chargers defense will be excited to make the number 1 pick look silly. So that'll be something.
Bucks and Saints.
Do you have an over-under on this game?
The line right now is 49 as the over-under, with the Saints favored by 3.5.
I think these offenses have something to prove. I think Drew Brees in his final go-round, that's all provided that Kamara's in the lineup. I'm assuming he will be based on everything. And then I think that, Michael Thomas obviously is going to go get his. Drew's going to air it out. Tom's going to have something to prove. That being said, wouldn't be surprised if it's a 10-7 game.
Cardinals and Niners.
I think this one is this Kyler Murray's breakout year, right? Is this the 3rd consecutive year of a quarterback coming into a sophomore season kind of usurping himself into the MVP discussion, right? We had Mahomes, then we had Lamar Jackson. A lot of people anointed Kyler as the guy this offseason. Some of that has faded as we've gotten a little bit closer, which is crazy because he actually has more weapons now than what he did when the offseason began in February. I am interested in that, and I'm also interested to see what the Niners do at the wide receiver position.
Cowboys and Rams, the Sunday night game.
What does Dallas's offense look like now? Will Mike McCarthy try to run the football with Zeke? I mean, will he let Dak take control and try to win it on his right arm? I mean, there's so many questions there of how they want to look. Are they going to be balanced? I think that's the biggest thing with that offense. And the Rams were disappointing last year, and I think they've got something to prove. I think Jared Goff has something to prove. They got, shipped some guys out of town. So what's that going to look like now?
I want to know how the running back room is going to play out for the Rams. Is Cam Akers the answer? Henderson's dinged up, so we may not see a bunch of Henderson, So are we going to see a bunch of Malcolm Brown to start, and then Akers going to kind of take over? Are we going to see Akers get 15 to 17 touches here in week 1 and maybe cement himself as the lead back if he's able to break one and get to pay dirt here for his first NFL game? So there's a lot of questions. Can Kupp kind of bounce back to how he was the first half of last year? Does Robert Woods have the positive regression from the touchdown woes that were in 2019?
I'm also very interested to see, too, what kind of personnel the Rams are going to primarily be in. Are they going to run some of these double tight end sets with both Higbee and Everett? Yeah, a lot of questions there for me as well. Looking at the Monday night games, we got a double Monday night header starting off with the Steelers and Giants. Thoughts here?
How's Big Ben look? How Big Ben looks will pretty much determine the Steelers' season. So that's the only thing I'm looking at for the first Monday night game.
There might be some people that'll be chewing some fingernails there Monday night, because you might be waiting on Big Ben to win you a week there. So I think that could be intriguing with how does he look.
I think maybe one other thing that, now that I'm thinking about it, what I'm going to be looking at for the Monday night game is which New York Giants receiver kind of steps ahead and shows that he's the Daniel Jones number one option. Is it Sterling Shepard, who they've touted as having a great camp? Does Slayton kind of take that next step and become almost Victor Cruz-esque, right? Kind of that undersized wide receiver with a little bit of speed who can be your number one option for a short term. So I am interested to see how the passing game breaks down and which receiver makes that leap to say, hey, I'm the lead dog here.
Titans and Broncos.
Can Derrick Henry be what Derrick Henry was the last half of last year?
The progression of Drew Lock, very much the same as I was talking about with Dwayne Haskins, but for different reasons. Lock wasn't terrible his final 6 games as a pro, but he's raw, right? So how much work was he able to get with Judy and with Sutton and with Melvin Gordon being in there? What's the running back dynamic look like?
Well, guys, that's going to kind of wrap up the slate of games that are being played this coming week.